Hey guys, what's up? It's very windy today at this beautiful lake in Jane Forrester Park. Anyway, today I'm gonna show you 10 short but great hidden JRPG gems that maybe you should play. And yes, I know I need a haircut. Number 10. Mystic Chronicles. From Kemco's ginormous library of JRPGs comes Mystic Chronicles, a turn-based RPG digital only on the PSP and the PS Vita. So I had to choose what I considered one of the best published by this prolific company. It just so happens that it's one of the first ones they released that started their curious trending. The game follows the adventures of Lux in a quest for revenge against the obscure organization that destroyed his village. He'll meet several characters that will join his party, but more importantly, creatures that can be summoned and fight actively during battle. This is exactly what adds a little extra something to this game, as the guardians can make the combat all the more fun. Mystic Chronicles is a very good RPG, inspired by the classics from the 90s, and well, like almost every single Kemco RPG out there, it's fairly short. It will probably take you less than 15 hours to complete the main story. Number 9. Lost Kingdoms. An overlooked gem exclusive to the GameCube. It's an action RPG, but one where you'll control Princess Katia and her summons. It's an interesting premise, alright, with a solid story about Katia trying to save her kingdom from a dangerous fog phenomenon. You will visit a short amount of different areas with random encounters to engage in battle. You'll have to decide which monsters to summon and when to aid you. Katia can fight too, but it's always best to focus on your creatures. These are bound in cards, of course, and the game revolves around collecting them and fusing them. Now, Lost Kingdoms can be surprisingly short depending on how good you play and how you manage your cards. It's kinda tricky as the game gets harder the more you advance, which means the average time might vary. I'd say 10 hours will be the maximum amount, but I've seen others beat it in much less than that. So yes, indeed, it is quite the fleeting adventure, but trust me, it's totally worth it. There's also a second game on the GameCube, but, well, ironically it's more expensive and not so good. Number 8. Folklore. Oh man, what a unique gem we've got here. Exclusive to the PS3, developed by a defunct company called Game Republic. It's not an anime-styled RPG as you can clearly see, but still made by Japanese developers. Folklore will let you choose which character to play as, but let me warn you, near the end, you'll reach a point where the game will force you to play as the one you didn't choose. In other words, you'll have to play as both. That's okay since they are completely different characters in terms of point of view, combat style and personality. The core of this game is to use the PS3 6-axis feature to absorb your enemy's soul so you can learn their ability. Some will be harder to manipulate, I mean the 6-axis was never perfect to begin with, but I can guarantee it works just fine. It took me around 6 hours to beat it with each character, plus the final episodes which weren't even 2, so this game will probably take you less than 20 hours to finish. That is, if you stick to the main story, cause this one has some quests and some small routes that offer a little variation to the outcome of each chapter. Number 7. Shining Tears. Here's one of the very few JRPGs on the PS2 with a local 2-player mode. It's a very charming game with beautiful character design by Tony Taka. Story starts off both interesting and cliché at the same time, as it follows the classic amnesiac protagonist with hidden dark powers. But it does hook you up, thanks to its diverse cast of characters, each with a very unique personality. A war falls out between the city of Shieldia and the Rungeist Empire, so the main characters form a mercenary group to fight against them. Story-wise, it's kinda like Suikoden, where little by little you start adding different races to the cause. As you can see, it's an action RPG with a top-down view, with super deformed models. It's clunky, but for some reason it's also really fun, especially considering the missions are fairly short. If you die, you can come back right at the point where you die. That's awesome! You keep your items, but you lose all money, or you can just retreat anytime and keep everything. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the game makes up for its somewhat nasty penalties. You can take only one party member per mission, and this game has several endings that can vary depending on the character you fought alongside the most. Now, Shining Tears was more or less intended to be played with somebody else, because honestly, the AI of your companion doesn't work very well on single player mode, unless you abuse the link skills together with your main character, which adds its positive traits to the experience. This is a cool game and I do recommend it, even though it's mostly an acquired taste. It also has a sequel called Shining Wind, but that game is... Anyway, I don't think this one will take you more than 15 hours, but since it's a bit of a grindfest, it might be a little bit longer than that. Number 6. Lord of Magna, Made in Heaven. Another extremely charming and overly addictive RPG I've covered before, exclusive to the 3DS by the way. Story is a harem, but fanservice is kept to a minimum as it tries to focus on the MC's relationship with the girls. The entire game will revolve around the inn, where most of the plot will progress. The real fun is on the battle system. It's a strategy RPG but not grid-based, so you move within these ranged areas to attack your enemies. The objective is to make them bump against each other to gain more points and therefore more experience. Just like Shining Tears, the ending depends on the heroine you score with the most, and since the battle system is a lot of fun, I'd say it has solid replayability. On my first playthrough I did 17 hours, barely any side quests, focused on the main story. So it's short but great and definitely a beautiful hidden gem. Number 5. Dragon Marked for Death. This excellent side-scrolling action RPG by Inti Creates is on the Switch, PC, and recently released on the PS4. It's a quest-driven game that, just like Shining Tears, focuses more on the multiplayer modes, both local and online. However, even the single-player adventure stands its ground masterfully. Its digital release was cut into 2 parts, each with only 2 characters to choose from. The definitive and physical release on the Switch has all 4, of course. 2 more can be chosen, but they're DLC. Like I said, it's an action RPG played in 2D with great pixel art. It's very tough, with some missions that can totally drive you nuts. All of them have a time limit, but they often give you between 40 minutes and an hour. Trust me, that's a lot, considering you won't take more than 15 or 20 to complete them. Hell, some will not even be 10 minutes long. It's a grindfest, alright, so obviously the more you progress, the harder it will get. This is where the multiplayer mode comes in handy, as it perfectly delivers a more balanced experience. Since it traverses on quests, you can put as many hours as you want to, but the main story shouldn't take you more than 20 to complete. Number 4. Battle Princess of Arcadias. This is another fabulous action RPG, again in 2D but with beautiful colors and backgrounds. Digital only sadly and exclusive to the PS3, but it's a must play I say, even if the story is a fun fest of idiocy and silliness. I was hooked because there were so many characters to play as, each controlling totally different. You can take 3 of them per battle and you can switch between them at any given time. Some enemies will be weaker against them or stronger, so you want to have a balanced party most of the time. Some characters are kinda broken though, so using them to beat the crap out of everything and everybody is quite satisfying. Anyway, I've declared my love for this gem several times before, praising its 3 different battle modes, including the war fights and the bosses, each with its unique perks. So let's move on to the next RPGs on the list, but not before I say I did 16 hours total of gameplay. Number 3. Knights of Azure 1 and 2. This pair is loaded with raunchy content and Yuri relationships. It really revolves around that, so if that bothers you, skip them both. But at least give them a try, because the combat here is top notch. They're action RPGs a la hack and slash with quick and awesome controls. One is a direct sequel to the other, but the second has its own story and cast of characters. You don't necessarily need to play the first one, but I highly recommend them both anyway. Combat and graphics are slightly better on the sequel, but the rest is superior on the original. Curiously though, that one stayed on PS4 and PC, while the second also got a Switch release. Why not the first one too? Alas. They're also on the Vita, exclusive to Japan, but those versions are kinda bad. Both of them revolve around the main character being a half-demon with vampire abilities. The first game centers around Arnis in a quest to defeat the Night Lord and the fiends that steal nighttime from people. Here you will only have servants, which are different elemental creatures that will fight alongside you. The sequel follows Alush, who becomes a full-fledged vampire after being killed by the Moon Queen, so her purpose is to stop her from achieving her sinister plans. Servants can also be recruited to fight with you, but here you can have at least one of the several female characters to join you in battle. Matter of fact, the game heavily revolves around that and Alush's relationship with each. This one also has a timer. After every mission, completed or not, a night will elapse. After several nights, the game's over. I focused on the main story and did 13 hours and a half. I never came close, not even once, to the time limit. But I understand it can get in the way if you want to do all the side content. Anyway, don't trust the critics on this game. They destroy them just because they're overly sexualized. The combat alone is completely worth the experience, regardless of your tastes. Okay, my number 2 is Growlanser II, The Sense of Justice, and I know I've discussed this game recently, so I'll be quick. Look, by this point you already know I'm a huge Growlanser fan, so despite what I've said about the game being too hard, that doesn't mean it's bad at all. The only reason I put it so high on the list is because it is actually one of the best games here. But that's because I'm a sucker for the series and for some real-time strategy RPGs. Also, I often forget to mention the story is quite solid and highly interesting, especially since there's 3 different main routes to follow and therefore various unique endings. Some confusion will be here as it is a direct sequel to the first only in Japan game, but I understood the main stuff with zero issues. I love the characters and their hardships, a truly amazing development. In conclusion, yes, it can be outrageously hard sometimes, but it's so good, it's totally worth it to tolerate its madness. And even with some grinding included, I still did 17 hours on my first playthrough. Number 1. Vanguard Bandits. Speaking about different routes where your choices really do impact the story, here's Vanguard Bandits. Okay, it's quite expensive and rare nowadays, I get it, but I think it's on the PSN, and if not, look, just emulate it. Damn it, it's almost a masterpiece, and that comes from a gamer who's never really been into mechs or armored giants. The story and the choices you make here, leading to its several different routes, are the reasons I fell in love. Looks and plays a little low budget like, but it's so goddamn charismatic, so retro, so 90s. Yeah, I'm starting to sound like a hipster. Vanguard Bandits is all about Bastion choosing how to approach the current civil wars and the battle against the Empire. No matter the path he follows, several characters will join him. They all fight in their mechs, of course. It's a grid-based tactical RPG, but one with certain rules and penalties. Attack, defend, avoid, counter are there, then there's flanking, cooldown if you consume too much AP. Also the terrain matters, and it will play around with the action points to increase or decrease your movement. Vanguard Bandits, without a doubt, it's a must-play in my opinion, with less than 20 hours of playtime depending on the route you choose to follow.